Today it's time for the world champion of StarCraft 2 to face off against one of the world's greatest Zergs. What I've got for you today is a best of 5 series. That's the finals of the Kung Fu Cup. As you may have already noticed, we find ourselves on one of the new maps. It's called Solaris, so of course that means we are indeed on the new multiplayer balance patch as well. As a matter of fact, I don't think I'm gonna cast any more games going forward from the previous patch, so I guess it's safe to assume that every single video you're gonna watch moving onwards is gonna be played on the most recent StarCraft patch. Anyways, spotting right here in the top left-hand corner, we have the world champion of StarCraft 2. Of course, that means we have none other than Oliveira. His opponent in the opposite corner with the blue Zerg drones, he goes by the name of Dark. Alrighty, so this particular series is the finals of the Kung Fu Cup, which is a tournament that gets put on by the Chinese community. Of course, Oliveira being from China, it's always nice to see him competing in events. He doesn't play nearly as many of the online tournaments as some of the other players have, but he's still very good at the game, and from what I've heard, he apparently stepped it up again recently. So he had that miracle run at the beginning of 2023. I've already talked about it at length in previous videos. But just thinking about PM CET back in, well, February, I think is when it was, just puts a smile on my face right away. It's one of the most beautiful stories in esports ever. Maybe a lot of people outside of StarCraft 2 are not aware of it, but Oliveira, I mean, someone who I think we all expected to do decently well, but maybe he would make like a round of 16, right? Something along those lines. He would do decently well, but I don't think anybody really expected him to win the entire event. He had that miracle run, taking down Hero Marine first off in I think the round of 12, then Raynor in the round of 8, then Hero in the round of 4, and then Maru in the grand finals. I mean, honestly, the list of players he took down, just ludicrous. And then obviously he also had that great interview after, winning the whole thing. He was talking about how he's just a normal man and how he's now achieved his goal. I mean, I love his story. I think Oliveira, one of the greatest stories of StarCraft 2. However, and I don't mean this to be rude or whatever, he's just not really been at the same level ever since that PM CET. He's still been very good, but is he Dark levels of good, right? I cast Dark all the time because Dark participates in everything. The Kung Fu Cup is, I think, about a $14-ish $100 tournament. So obviously Dark is playing, right? Basically, if your event has like more than 500 bucks, Dark is playing. Dark plays in everything, man. It's been rumored that Dark is gonna go to the Korean military service for about 2 years now. And he's still here. Yeah, I remember, so I was actually interviewing Dark at PM CET. So I was talking to him. He was sitting right next to me on the couch. He was like, yeah, this is probably going to be my final tournament. I was like, Dark, really? That's so sad. He's like, yeah, I got a letter in the mail and I have to go do my mandatory. And now we are here. It's October. He's still playing in literally everything. So at this point, I think we're just gonna assume that he will leave at some point, but apparently not just yet. Anyhow, guys, I've been blabbering on words about unrelated stuff. We've got ourselves a triple CC opener right here for Oliveira, and we have a gasless opener for Dark. So Dark has not actually taken any Vespian whatsoever. He's opened up quick triple hatch into just mass queen production. So in the last few casts that I've done featuring Dark, and in every single game that I've seen him play on the new multiplayer balance patch so far, he has refused to make banelings. Okay, so we're gonna go triple gas all at the same time, and then a Roach Warren on the back of this. I really wonder if we're gonna see him play banelings in this particular series. I mean, obviously I casted that Serral game against Cure. Serral does seem to be fond of playing banelings still. So, yeah, I wonder if Dark has been looking at some of those games as well. He's like, yeah, well, maybe the unit isn't that bad after all. So I think the big difference, of course, with the Baneling is that it received a double nerf, and a lot of Zerg players are quite upset about it. I'm very curious to see if Dark decides to go for any sort of Baneling play in this particular series. I mean, it's a best of 5 against somebody who's a big fan of Bio Terran. The Baneling has always been the go-to option. I'm not exactly sure. Also, in basically every single game that I've seen Dark play on the new multiplayer balance patch so far, he plays hyper aggressively. But in this game so far, I mean, his opener is definitely a little bit funky, but it doesn't strike as I'm gonna hit you in the face repeatedly type of thing, you know? Like, this is not really somebody who is making himself up to go for an all-in right now. He's even thinking about, I think, a 4th base here. I wouldn't be surprised if he's gonna be taking one here momentarily. There's already Marines patrolling the perimeter of the main base. I think Oliveira probably is well aware of Dark's strategies lately, so he does not want to have a Nidus Worm going up in his main. Couple of roaches are gonna march across the map. Fair enough. There's a Banshee waiting though. Oliveira opening up a pretty safe way here. Nothing all too crazy. He does have a lot of Hellions, but with this many queens, they can literally block the entire ramp just, you know, with the width of their bodies. Very dramatic, eh? Anyways, they are indeed thick enough. They're like thick with like 4 C's and like spaces in between the letters, all uppercase, that sort of thing. Yeah, they don't mess around. Okay, so 1-1, I guess, with roach speed. Really? It's funny to me how whenever there are significant changes to StarCraft 2, this is always the build that Zerg players come back to. And it's... well, it's not really a build, I guess, right? It's more like the strategy, right? So the double upgrades together with the Roach Warren and the speed upgrade. This is like the Zerg safe space. This is where Zerg players feel most comfortable. This particular opener is the build that most players learn when they first start playing StarCraft 2, and it seems to be what the standard fallback is for practically every Zerg player under the sun. So just good old 1-1 upgrades together with Roach speed. Pretty passive game so far though, neither player really committing to anything. I'm surprised that Oliveira has made so many Hellions and a Banshee and he hasn't really tried to get much done at all. Mostly just happy to play the macro game apparently. And you know what, that may also have something to do with the new balance patch. This is game number 1 in the best of 5. There's a good chunk of money on the line here. Apparently Oliveira is feeling confident enough to play the macro game against Dark, which is probably a good indicator, yeah. I don't really know exactly where he's currently at, but he's just gonna go for the second factory right now. 4th command center gets fired up. We have an armory in the main, or in the natural radar over here, and he's gonna be going into the 2-2 research. We'll see. Now finally, by the way, link speed is coming up, and would you look at that, gamers. Could be a fluke. He could just be making it for the show. But we do have a Baneling nest. Crazy concept. Okay. Love that, love that supply depot positioning over here. Forcing the Zerg units to funnel into, well, a beautiful little corridor here, I guess, where the siege tanks can maximize their splash damage. Golden Aura, by the way, seems to become the map that is kind of like the Gresven of this map pool. Because there are so many good choke points for Terrans to control. So that may also be the reason why Oliveira is playing such a passive game here. Generally, yeah, Terran is a little bit more aggressive than this, but that may very well be the reason why he's decided to play a pretty passive game. It's pretty easy to take the first 5, sometimes even 6 bases, and yeah, that gets pretty wild. But we've only seen a handful of games right now, so far on these new maps, and only really time will tell how this is going to work out. Okay, so, Infestors are coming up. Hive is going to finish up momentarily. +1, +2 here as well for Dark, so he's gonna transition here towards... we're making Banelings, guys. Somebody call the paper. Or, sorry, that's a boomer expression. Somebody call the internet? I don't know how it works. Anyways, he's getting himself some Banelings going, so Dark, no longer allergic to the unit. Apparently he's figured out, yo, maybe I do need them. Having that splash damage is really, really nice. There are a couple of Infestors out, so the Infestors now do spawn with enough energy to cast Fungal Growth. Somebody pointed this out. I actually didn't quite realize that this was the case. So once upon a time, obviously, the Infestor had an ability called the Infested Terran. It was considered very broken, but the Infested Terran was 50 energy. And these days, until the most recent patch, Infestors would spawn with 50 energy still, but there was no spell for them to cast at 50 energy. So basically always you would have to just, yeah, have them sitting around for like half a minute before they would finally be able to cast anything. Obviously there's Microbial Shroud, but I don't think anybody considers Microbial Shroud even remotely as powerful as the Infested Terran was back in the day. Anyways, Golden Base taken in the bottom left-hand corner. Nidus Worm is available here as well for Dark. But first off, he will have to address this massive Terran army. So, both players have been tiptoeing around each other for the first 9 minutes of this series. He doesn't have any Viper. Oh no, he does have Vipers. I was gonna say, yeah, if he doesn't have any Vipers, this is gonna be a very difficult push to hold. I didn't see them on the production tab, but luckily Dark, for his sake at least, he did make them. He's got Fungal Growths, he's got Transfuses, and he's got, well, Blinding Clouds. There we go. Does he have enough to break through all of this? Looks to me like he's got plenty of stuff. A lot of Banelings, though, are dying. Yeah, reinforcing Terran units are showing up. You know what? I may have spoke too soon. I look at a lot of these engagements from the previous patch's point of view, and those Banelings just got popped much easier. Oliveira Despite the fact that he fought into a choke point and half his army was disabled there in that engagement, he does shut down the hatchery over here, and he does take a pretty favorable trade. Then again, though, the golden minerals are taken in the bottom left-hand corner. He doesn't know about them yet. Yeah, he hasn't seen it, so that might actually backfire here in a moment, because he's effectively forced those drones from this base all the way down towards the bottom left-hand corner. And while there will be a small economical hit while those units are traveling, they're going to be able to make up for that pretty easily. Yeah, I think Dark should feel a nice little income boost here over the next couple of minutes. Okay, so 4 bases has been acquired here. Oliveira is going to be looking for this expansion over here next, and then the one up here in the 12 o'clock position on the minimap. I think that's probably going to be coming after that relatively soon. He's going to go into the drilling clause research. That's that widow mine improvement that now allows them to unburrow faster too, but of course, it always already allowed you to burrow them nice and quickly. 3-3 research here. Already underway for Terran, whereas Zerg is still kind of stuck, you know, on some lower tier upgrades. He is getting the +3 armor though, which is going to benefit all of these ground units. Nidus Worm at this point gets scouted, and it may very well get killed before any worm is actually gone across the map. Roaches and Ravagers are just not going to cut it here. Okay, Queens show up. Banelings would finish morphing in. Oliveira in the meantime though, microing on the left side of the map. You know what? This is the Oliveira that we saw at Kijkwijzer, right? Like, he's doing some very stellar micro here. Solid macro overall. He's still playing against a world-class Zerg, so this is by no means going to be an easy win, but I do like this position that he's found himself in quite a bit. There's the Ultralisk Cavern. We haven't really seen a lot of late-game TVZ yet, and this game may very well be headed in that direction right now. I think the new patch is beneficial for Terran in his matchup overall. But yeah, only time will really tell. Like, the Lurker is a little bit weaker, the Broodlord is a little bit weaker, the Infestor is a little bit weaker, the Ghost is a little bit weaker too. The Ultra is, I guess, 25 minerals cheaper, but mostly irrelevant. I think Terrans actually will be quite happy to just stick around on this mid-game army for the entire game if they need to. Yeah, the Widowmine change there is really nice, and then obviously also the Caduceus reactor. The Medevac improvement that allows them to regen energy twice as fast in the fusion core. Certainly not something to scoff at. Anyways, looks like the Medevac over here did end up going down. Zergling counterattack is attempted here, but Planetary Fortress is already done. There's another base that will be finishing up here momentarily. Oliveira, he does not want to see this golden base. Now we have a Nidus Worm going up inside of the main. Okay, nice little hit squad over here though, getting rid of that hatchery in just a very small amount of time. Lings and Banes have been tasked with killing this Planetary Fortress, and the SCVs building it. In the meantime, we have the Nidus Worm in the main base, only a handful of Lings. Not really getting that much done there, but it's distracting a big chunk of that Terran army. And this is what Dark does. Dark's incredibly good when it comes to these chaotic games, right? He tries to create chaos and he tries to overwhelm you at so many different angles all at once. Yep. I think I said that I liked this game a lot better for Oliveira just a minute or two ago. Turns out if you're not Clem or Maru, you may crumble under all of the pressure that Dark is putting you under. Anabolic Synthesis coming up. That's the movement speed improvement for the Ultralisk. Only off creep. That's the Caster Flex, by the way. Are you impressed? I knew the name of that upgrade. I think I even knew it correctly. I think it's Anabolic Synthesis. I think so. We should probably have a Viking or something up there. Council on his hatchery, though. Lovely work here by Oliveira once again. And you know what? This Planetary Fortress is still going to give him a good chunk of income. Ooh. Corrosive Biles almost ended up shutting down Medevacs. That should not be the case. Ghost right now getting rid of a couple of these OVs. They don't deal quite as much damage with the snipe as they once did, but certainly gonna make quite a bit of damage there overall. It's certainly gonna deal that much damage. Anyways, Ultras are coming up. So real quick, the changes to the Ultras. Infestors, by the way. Ooh, careful. Changes to the Ultras. First up, they're 25 minerals cheaper. And secondly, Ghosts now take 4 snipes to kill an Ultralisk rather than 3. Which is significant. Ultras, obviously, with the patch before the current one, also unlock the ability to run away from the Ghost. So I think it should, yeah, it should mean that the Ghost is not quite as powerful against the Ultralisk-based army here in the end. And suddenly the siege tanks here are caught off guard. Dark is overwhelming his army with blinding clouds, fungal growths, and he is murdering everything. Are there enough units, though? Yeah, I was gonna say, are there enough units? He's got loads of money in the bank, but he doesn't have larva. Oh, no. The Ultras here are available. Snipe does indeed connect with one of those Vipers. There's not enough larva available right now for Dark to actually reinforce this army of his. The Queens are pulled away from their mineral lines as well to try and transfuse these Ultralisks, but that is a gigantic error right there by the Zerg. He's forcing himself into even more Ultras, which is one of those units I don't think he necessarily wants to be making that many more of, but since he needs to spend his money somewhere, I guess they're, yeah, the most larva efficient unit to produce. Okay. Oliveira, because of this though, finding himself at a nice supply advantage once again. Ultra making use, that's another buff actually, I didn't even mention it, but they do burrow a little bit quicker. That's the first time I've seen an Ultra burrow in years. That was, I guess, well, maybe not years. Maybe months. I don't know. I don't remember the last time I've seen an Ultralist burrow, but certainly not bad at all. Almost saved that one. But yeah, almost doesn't really help you out that much, I suppose. Infernal Pre-Igniter being researched here. +3 mech upgrades too, so that's gonna make those Hellbats very powerful. +3 melee coming up right now here for the Zerg player. Oliveira has apparently found his get out of jail card, because I really feel like he was just about to get overwhelmed by like 100+ Zerglings. We see that all the time, right? Where the production tabs shows us that, well, the Zerg army may have just been cleaned up, but there's tons of Lings coming. Dark didn't have the larva, he messed up with his macro, and in the end it allowed Oliveira to stay in the game and eventually obtain the victory. Alcyone is gonna be game number 2 in this best of 5 series. I've noticed lately that a lot of the top level Terrans, they don't seem to be particularly big fans of opening up with the triple Reaper style. I wonder as to why that is. Like, imagine if Dark played against 3 Reapers in the previous game. I mean, he would need to get Zergling speed. There was no way he was gonna just stick around on Queens there. And triple hatch, I mean, maybe it's viable, but I've got a feeling it'd be kind of difficult. My god. Look at the rally points set up in a million different locations right there for that Reaper. I was gonna say, that's not usually how we just set that thing up. I guess he, well, was still trying to figure out where the opponent spawned on the other side of the map. I doubt it, but maybe just creating a nice little pattern. He could click, he didn't really have anything to worry about. Okay, so this time around, it's not Dark skipping the gas geyser until you made 3 all at once. Instead, it's just gonna be a hatchery into a gas and then eventually a spawning pool. Triple CC start right here for Oliveira. We'll probably be seeing him go for some Hellion play, but maybe, could be Cyclones? I think it's gonna be Starport now. Yeah, no, it's gonna be a Starport together with Hellions here instead. You could go for some Cyclones if you wanted to, man. I would make me happy, Oliveira, I'm just saying, okay? I know you don't really care much about my personal happiness, but yeah, no, it's gonna be a couple of Hellions. Okay. So what exactly went wrong in the previous game for Dark? Honestly, I think Dark kind of ran into the same issue that I ran into there while casting. You look at these fights that you have executed a million times before. Maybe not a million times, maybe 100 times, and 100,000 times for Dark. But anyways, you look at those fights that you've done many times before, and you're like, yep, I'm fighting into a choke point, but I have my Banelings. They don't die nearly as quickly. And then suddenly, none of them connected, and all of them died. And you got very little damage done in that choke point, right? Nice little Zergling counterattack here. Then after that, in the late game, yeah, he was playing late game Zerg, and I'm... I know I sound pretty biased whenever I say these sort of things, and I really try to be objective, but... in my mind, the previous multiplayer balance patch was 50-50. So, about half of the top level games were won by Terran. About half of them were won by Zerg. I think the actual statistics were, for like the top 8 players in the world, I don't know the exact numbers. I think it was 53 or 54% in favor of Terran. But now, with the new patch, Terran late game is slightly weaker, I suppose, with the Ghost nerf, but only ever so slightly. It really doesn't impact this matchup that much. The changes are mostly for TVP, but the Zerg late game definitely... yeah, there's a bunch of nerfs across the board, and then a 25 mineral buff for the Ultra to compensate for it. I mean, it really doesn't... yeah, it really doesn't seem to matter that much in my mind. But anyways, curious to see what late game TVZ is going to be like, though. In the, yeah, over the next couple of months in the upcoming games that we'll see at this level of play. Because it seems to me that at least in the games that I've watched so far, that Zergs are trying to find their footing a little bit. They are trying to make sure that they can play the late game as they once did. A lot of Zergs, though, seem to be finding most of their success right now by playing very aggressively. Dark included. I've seen him play very aggressively. But anyways, this time around, this is looking like a very conventional build here from Dark. The same can be said here for Oliveira. With a conventional build, though, I'm talking about a build that does go the distance, right? A build where you don't really plan on obtaining the victory early on. You're just trying to obtain advantages. Okay, it's gonna be Mutaling Bane here from him. That's what Serral has been experimenting with. But this is a different way of getting to Mutaling Bane. So the way that we saw Serral go into Mutas against that game on Radustad Station against Cure. He rushed out the lair, and then he made a Spire, went into a Baneling Nest, and then eventually double upgrades. This is Dark going Baneling speed first, then into double upgrades, and then a Spire. That means that the Mutas will be out very late, but at least his upgrades are going to be much more comparable to the Terrans. And in this particular case, even ahead, because Oliveira apparently forgot about the +1 infantry armor for just a little bit. Okay. He kind of went for the Spire, I guess, as if it was a Hydra Den, you know? This is normally when you would also at least be considering a Hydra's Den. Anyhow, how good is the Muta going to be? Like I said, Dark's very good when it comes to creating chaos, but Oliveira is a super fast player, and he certainly has a lot of experience playing against Mutas as well. I do kind of feel like Mutaling Bane is maybe a B-tier strategy at best. I really don't think it's that great, to be honest, but it definitely can catch the Terrans off guard, especially if they haven't played against it a whole lot as of late. So Widowmine opener once again here for Oliveira, which is awesome for him. Exactly what we want to see. Liberator over here, by the way, harassing this base for just a moment. It does not quite see this Spire here. Would be kind of nice to know, so you can start up a couple of missile turrets. Now the Hellions are thinking about driving into the mineral line. I mean, you guys are on creep, man. Yeah, I was gonna say, that is way too risky. This base is, by the way, still denied. Okay, we have a lot of idle units. The Mutas are trying to chase down that medevac, but these drones, what are the Queens doing? Dark, buddy? Can we... Okay, I thought the Queens were gonna... Okay. These drones have not been mining for like a minute. Yeah, if we look right here at the income, yep, this huge income advantage right here for Oliveira that he's had for quite a while is mostly just due to the fact that half of the workers there in that base weren't mining. Even more than half of them. Okay. Now the main advantage of going Mutas for Zerg is that they do get that map control, right? So map control here is an awesome tool to have. You can go for a big attack if you want to here as Terran, but you have to be worried about those Mutas. Mutas are super fast, so they're great at harassing the Terran at home, picking up a bunch of kills here and there, and then still being home in time for dinner, plus to defend, you know, the actual Zerg bases. Also, medevac drops become very difficult to execute. It becomes a lot more, well, I hope that the Mutas don't find me type of strategy, which generally is not great. +2/+2 here, nice and early. Mistake here, once again, as far as the upgrades go, by Oliveira. Delayed the armory for long enough, so the 2/2 cannot be fired up immediately. One thing to note here for Dark is that he does not have an infestation pit. So there's no hive on the horizon or anything like that. That means that he will be stuck at 2/2 research. And I think he may very well just decide to play Mutaling Bane for basically the entire game long. Maybe on just Lair Tech. Yeah, that's a style we used to see in the early days of StarCraft 2. So just avoid the Zerg late game altogether and just try to win with a mid-game army instead. Now Oliveira is going to come out and meet him here because he sees that, yeah, this fight is going to take place off creep if he can. And if Terran players can fight the Zerg off creep, they much prefer it that way. Okay, Dark right now maxed out. But can he really get much done with this army of his? It feels to me like he's just trying to play catch up here to the Terran. Oliveira mostly just taunting the opponent a little bit, inviting him to fight that marine army, but really he's trying to buy time for the planetary fortress at the 4th base. Drilling Claws is going to finish up momentarily. There's a Thor already available, so of course that unit deals a lot of damage from a distance against Mutas in particular, with those Javelin missiles. Okay. Clumped up Terran units here, but good splits there, considering the crisis. Is there enough? Oliveira has gone for a big counterattack on the other side of the map. Massive Widowmine hit as well. Does connect with a lot of those Zerg units. Now suddenly, there is Zerg everywhere. More and more Banelings on the back of this too. They're just gonna go straight into the main base or the natural expansion? I mean, that was not quite optimal, but loads of SCVs are going down. In the meantime, the queens over here are being overwhelmed as well. Keep in mind that in the previous game, we didn't have enough larva. And with all of the queens going down, that may very well be an issue once again. But I think the decision-making right here from Dark has been sound. Even though this is a risky decision, because you never really know if there could be a Widowmine hiding behind a corner. He's even now using the contamination ability from the Overseer. Okay. Yeah, he did decide to make the call here to go for the base race as soon as he saw the Terran army on the other side of the map, and it does end up working out in his favor here. Exactly what he was hoping for. He was not transitioning towards a hive, so he had money available for as many mid-game units as possible, and that allows Dark to even up the score. Next up, we find ourselves on Solaris. Dark has decided to go for a spawning pool first into what seems to be a hatchery on the low ground right now. 18 hatch. Interesting. Gas right now on the back of this. I think we've seen him play this before. A couple of videos ago. I'm trying to remember who he played against at the time. Anyways, I think what he's gonna do is plant down a Roach Warren. Yep. It's gotta be it. Okay. So Dark's still definitely playing aggressively, right? So that previous game was definitely more macro focused, but his entire intention there was to not allow the game to go the distance. And a week ago, he was keen to do that by making sure that he was just not playing any Banelings and just going Ravager Ling only. Apparently, today he's already brave enough to mix in some Banelings once again. Now, is this something that Oliveira will scout? Okay, so he sees here that it's a pool first. He sees a couple of links, he sees the timing of the hatch, but he doesn't know if there's gonna be a Baneling nest or, for example, a Roach Warren on the back of this. This is just gonna be like a 5 Roach opener, I believe. So we're not gonna see like a complete all-in out of this. But it's meant to put a lot of pressure on the Terran player, especially if they decide to go for a really quick third command center on the back of this too, which seems to be what Oliveira is very fond of. So he decided to go for a Reaper into a Marine. Now we're gonna go into a Reactor. I think if you go for 2 Cyclones here right away, you will find yourself in a phenomenal position. I think actually that might be the best move here for Oliveira. Because it's either gonna be just a macro game, fair enough, right? Or it could be like a quick third hatchery, fair enough. Or, well, it's gonna be something like this. Okay, well, he sees the roaches here. As they go into that speed up circle, drones on the back of this here for Dark. I think you go, oh, okay, he's gonna go for a single Cyclone. All right, we're gonna pump out 2 Marines instead. Okay, and we're gonna go for a single Cyclone. He could have gone for the switcheroo, but I guess it's a little bit dangerous. He also didn't really have that much gas yet, because he wants to go for that starport. Fair enough. Bunker coming up. Good decision making here, though, by Oliveira. Orbital command was indeed prioritized, so we can just land a mule in the main base, and then lift up the CC. Perfect. Now, how good is this Cyclone going to be against this particular start? I honestly don't know. We're gonna need a new supply depot. Yeah, normally you can try and shoot the Overlord. Exactly. If you kill the Overlord, then you lose high ground vision here as Zerg. Another Cyclone is soon going to be available. SCVs are pulled away as well. Keep in mind that these units have lost an armor. They've lost some health as well. They're easier to produce without, well, a tech lab, for example. And they're a little bit cheaper too, but you definitely have to treat them a lot more carefully. They're made out of glass nowadays. That depot is dead. Apparently we're gonna... Oh, no, it's not dead. Okay, gets 1 Ravager. That's a good snipe. Ravager for an SCV is a trait that any Terran will take any day of the week. Overlord running dangerously low. That bad boy was never gonna make it out. Lovely control here by Oliveira, doing a really excellent job. Okay. Good hold right there. But what exactly has been happening on the other side of the map? Well, Dark's been building up his economy. Third hatchery has just been planted down. Link speed on the back of this. Supply block on the back of this too. Almost. And he did save a bunch of his units. Interestingly enough, he did decide to go for 2 Ravagers. Very commonly, we see this only with like 1 Ravager and then link speed. I think most of the time you only go for a 2nd Ravager if you feel like you can deal critical amounts of damage, which Dark certainly did not do. But it's not bad, right? Oliveira is going to transition once again to what seems to be a Stimpack-based army. Yeah. Yeah, everybody on the ladder right now is playing Mass Cyclone, but at the pro level, rarely does that seem to be the case. Okay. Good to see though that Oliveira still has it, right? So he's doing a good job microing over here. Those Cyclones are gonna lose some value over time, and he does get the forced cancel there on the hedge in the end. We don't see a lot of Oliveira's games. He doesn't seem to play in offline events, for example, or sorry, online events nearly as often. Obviously, earlier this year as well, he had that visa issue where he was qualified for a premier tournament that was, I think, taking place in Sweden at the time. I may be mixing up a couple of events, but he basically couldn't get his visa organized in time, and yeah, we haven't really seen a ton of his games. But it's good to see that the man still has it. Okay. In the end, every player has their price, is what I've noticed. Sometimes some players don't like playing offline and online tournaments unless there's a ton of money on the line. But apparently, in order to get Oliveira to sign up for your event at least every once in a while, $1,400 is what we're aiming for, okay? Sometimes even Cyril signs up for the Kung Fu Cup. What's really funny to me is that players like, for example, Cyril, like Raynor, right? Like some of those top guys, they could be making so much money every week by playing every single offline, or sorry, every single online tournament. But they just choose not to? Oliveira, very similar as well. I guess his IAM Katowice bag was not bad, so he's like, you know what? I don't need to play any of those smaller $100 tournaments. I don't really care. Same for Maru. Maru could win like half of them, probably. Make a good couple $1,000 every week, and he's like, nah. Don't really care. It's gonna mess up my sleep schedule. I'm not gonna get happier. So it's fair enough, and obviously it might make the biggest premier tournaments a little bit difficult too. Zerkling counterattack right now on the other side of the map as the Banshees are going to town. Oliveira looking sharp. Yep, excellent scouting in this game so far. Not really making a whole lot of mistakes. Really slowing down that Zerk economy quite a bit. But he still needs to be careful, right? Because, yeah, he's killed a bunch of workers. Yeah, he did slow down the Zerk. But this is not quite a situation where you can now go and sit back and just call it a day. This game is by no means over yet, and Dark is definitely not somebody who's afraid of fighting dirty. Yeah, if Dark was a wrestler, he would definitely be hitting you in the... You know, you'd be doing the nasty tricks that aren't really allowed. But if the referee isn't paying attention, he'll be poking at your eyeballs, okay? You gotta be careful against a man like Dark. If he finds himself behind, that's oftentimes the moment where he really seems to power up. And in this case, I think, yeah, he's maybe slightly behind, but... It's very easy as a Terran here to look at this game and be like, yo, I've done so much damage, I've killed so many workers. I shut down his early game so easily, I mean, I must be super far ahead, right? And then you sit on your laurels for a little bit and you find yourself suddenly up against a massive Zerk economy because you didn't quite realize that they made an extra round of drones. And obviously that larva mechanic really allows Zerk to pump out tons of units. Anyways, another Baneling nest. 3 for 3? Okay. Dark. He's back. He's back playing to Banelings. Playing the Banelings here. Excellent choice, honestly. Good unit, guys. I do recommend it. Okay. Queen's desperately running around. The creep spread here has been contained very nicely, by the way. So any follow-up attack right now from the Terran should hit like a truck. Yeah, with 1-1 done, apparently this is the moment where some of that army is going to start running across the map through the speed circle. We had one little changeling over there spotting the move out here as well. Now, how do you exactly engage this here? So there's no Baneling speed yet. Obviously, this is not something Oliveira knows. He sees the Baneling nest right now, and he may notice that it's wiggling oddly, so that could be a big indicator. Okay, a couple of Hellbats here in the front. Siege tanks in the back, not quite sieged up yet. He sieged them up after the Corrosive Vials, but there's a lot of Ravagers from the back too. Dark, very good at taking these fights, but does he have enough stuff? I don't think so. Ravagers are real expensive, guys. 100 minerals, 100 gas each. when you're trading them out against Marines. Oh, he's gonna intercept them. Let's go, Oli. Lovely play right there by Oliveira. Catching Dark off guard in the middle of a Baneling and upgrade transition. Well, I was just talking about it. Apparently we do have a double barracks opener. This time around right here on the map Oceanborn. Very popular build as of late. At least in the previous patch. And it will probably gain some more popularity too as players get more and more comfortable playing these maps. The problem, of course, with the Triple Reaper start is that you have to spend a lot of attention looking at your Reapers. And if you still are trying to figure out how the map works, it might get a little bit tricky. Anyways, this is once again an opener that leads towards, well, mass bio in the mid game. At least it should. Be very surprised if Oliveira decides to go for a mech transition out of this. So once again, even though everybody on the ladder is playing, a lot of Cyclones at the pro level, I think a lot of the top level players are more than happy. Just playing the good old strategies they always have, but with a slightly better Terran army instead. Okay. Ooh, we're even gonna fly the Overlord. Well, we're gonna fly the barracks to kill the Overlord, rather. We're gonna walk our Overlord until it dies. Sad moment. Otto here figured out, Otto the Overlord figured out that he was to be executed, and he decided to make a run, but turns out he is kind of slow. Did that Reaper just get affected by a grenade that went off on the high ground? Okay. Great start here for Oliveira. Now, of course, this is a best of 5 series, so match point for him right now. Curious to see what Dark decides to do in this match. I don't want to talk for Dark, but I'm still getting that vibe by watching his games that he is not keen with how this is all going for him. Like, he is not down to play a macro game. He is not excited to sit in a match for a long time and play it, well, in a macro way. He's making tons of Zerglings, lots of Roach Ravager pushes. And even though we did have that, like, Mutaling Bane play earlier, which looked like a macro game, he didn't have a hive on the back of it, so he still was not really down to play a long, drawn-out match. It seemed to me, or it seems to me rather, that Dark is desperately trying to get these games to end before Terran gets to that death ball state. He does not want to play against the Turtle Terran, it seems. And because of that, I honestly wouldn't blame Oliveira if he's just sitting here and waiting for the Zerg to come to him. It's clearly that Dark is it is pretty clear that Dark is not comfortable. And if that's the case, yeah, just play the mind game. I think it'd be totally okay. Now, what's scary about that, though, is that Dark is one of the very best late game players in the entire game. The man has got phenomenal late game control, and if he's not really down to play late game, it does make me a little bit nervous overall. I can imagine the same can be said for Oliveira. He's played against Dark's late game many times, and he also knows that it's not gonna be an easy way out. Okay. There's the stim pack finishing up, plus 1 infantry weapons. We'll probably see combat shields here momentarily. Banshee now available too. That one's going to be used for base defense, and obviously for a little bit of harassment on the other side of the map. It's just a single Banshee, so killing any Zerglings here is kind of nice. There you go. Research. Denying any sort of scouting. Once again, loads of Lings out on the map. 24. Why do we have this many? I don't know. Dark patrolling Zerglings left, right, and center. A little bit afraid of just a flying unit catching him off guard. Combat shield's actually kind of late considering everything, but sorry, lads. Don't worry though, it's probably a one-way trip for these guys, so maybe you should be happy that there wasn't any more space in the plane. Banshee in the main base, just trying to distract the queens, and well, yeah, I think Oliveira realizes he's mostly been spotted. This is by no means a sharp attack anymore either, right? There should be more than enough Zerg available to defend against this, so settling for an Overlord kill here, not a bad idea. Still forcing out units though, which is important, because you can already see that Dark is sitting at 60 workers right now. 6 Overlords, by the way, coming up all at once. Dark making some mistakes. Forcing the council right there on the 4th. I expected the base over here to be attempted as well, and so did Oliveira. But apparently that's not the case. We're gonna go Baneling Nest, 1-1 upgrades, as well as a lair right now. Okay, yeah, secondary council right there. Excellent. Normally this macro hatchery over here in the main base is planted down at what would normally be like the 5th base location, but you sort of like treat it as a macro hatch. So we'd see Zerg players expend over here, while at the same time also expanding over here, and that's still going to be the case. But now it's going to be triple hatchery, together with a lair on the production tab. This is all getting very, very expensive. Dark has now invested thousands of resources in things that aren't really helpful yet here. And that suddenly makes this attack here from Oliveira a lot more scary. There are bailings available, but no bailing speed yet. I mean, the lair is still finishing up, and obviously you need a lair for it. This base is probably gonna get cancelled. There we go, a third time. Excellent stuff here by Oliveira. Looking mighty powerful. The only thing I don't really like here for Oliveira is that he stopped making SCVs. So he did go for a delayed third command center here. That makes this attack a lot more all-in-y than it needs to be. Yeah, he's not making any more SCVs. Okay. He wants to try and win the game over the next few minutes. Risky decision. Don't really like that bailing nest over here, by the way. I think the bailing nest probably should be tucked away in a safer spot. Then again, I can imagine that Dark hasn't really played against this sort of style all too often yet. Here come the Zerglings and Banelings, though, from the back. Are there enough units right now? He's retargeting with the siege tanks in the middle of those Baneling clumps. Excellent splits right here by the Chinese Terran player, but does he have the numbers? At this point, Zerg is sitting at 70 workers versus 50 SCVs. I think that's a situation that Dark is actually pretty happy with. Once again, this hatchery over here also denied, but we're still talking 2 base Terran versus 3 base Zerg. And you can deny that fourth over and over and over again. And now finally there's a third command center landed, but we don't have a lot of workers to instantly transfer. Yeah. So I would have liked it better if Oliveira decided to turn this into a 2-base all-in without the third command center. Or if he decided to make the third command center maybe a little bit earlier even, but then also continue the SCV production. Right now he's done a little bit of both. And whilst he has done a lot of damage on the other side of the map, and obviously he denied that base over and over and over again, he still finds himself in a shaky position now. Yeah, middle of the pack type of strategies never really work in StarCraft 2. Like, either you commit or you don't. And this was like a semi-committed attack right here by Oliveira, with semi-economy on the back of this too. Yeah. If he would have, for example, not gone for the orbital command here, the third that is, and he would have just gone straight into Aetherx, probably would have been able to catch the Zerg player off guard, especially after dealing so much damage earlier on. But then with the delayed base and the delayed SCVs, it puts you in a weird spot. Don't get me wrong though, this is still not a bad position for him. It's just a lot more playable for Dark here than I think he even expected it to be. Now the Hive is done. Adrenal Glands. Super quick Ultra Cavern. I actually really like that Ultralisk Cavern here. Terran is not really in a situation where they're going to be making that switch on over towards Ghosts anytime soon. Generally, we see the Ghost coming up as soon as the fourth command center has morphed into a planetary, but it's still like a minute or so away from now, so maybe Ultras, an Infestor, 2 Vipers. Yeah, maybe they can catch the Terran player off guard. At least there's a bit of a timing window right there for the Zerg. Big counterattack here. +2/+2 finishing for the Zerg player. Significant advantage there compared to the Terran's upgrades. Creep spread, by the way, relayed down very nicely here by Dark. Constantly pushing the creep forward still, despite the fact that a lot of tumors have been destroyed in this game. Widow Mine over there, betraying the Terran army. It's not what you want to see. Unless you're a Zerg player, then maybe you do. Queen over here gets sniped. Another Queen may very well end up going down. Not quite. Okay, not enough room in the plane. Okay, Planetary is going to set up itself right over here right now. 5th command center starts up immediately, before we see any sort of Ghost Academy. That's going to be 2 dead Medivacs. Really no way that these are going to survive this whole endeavor. Bio Army is going to continue fighting over here on the left side, but you can see that Oliveira is... Yeah, the wind has been taken out of his sails, right? He doesn't really have a lot of staying power anymore. We even have some burrowed Banelings here to try and maybe catch some of that Terran army if it decides to march down this ramp. Okay. So, 82 workers here for the Zerg, 73 for Terran. Despite the fact, though, that this has been a committed game here by Oliveira, he still finds himself in a pretty good position. That trait looked pretty good for the Zerg, but I'm not convinced that it was that awesome. Fungal growth here, though. Very dangerous. Keep in mind that the fungal growth range has been reduced by 1. Significant change here. Significant buff in favor of Terran in this particular situation. That Widowmine connection was amazing for Oliveira. But still, does he have enough numbers? Like, does he have enough stuff? Parasitic bombs once again going down. He's trying to get the fungal growths, I guess, or maybe slow down some of this Terran army. That parabomb, hello, we're not gonna unload the units. Okay, that's about 9 supply or so down the drain. Bailing's over here. Boom. Woo. That's when you're happy you're on an underwater map, huh? Those corpses floating to the surface of Oceanborn. Anyways, lovely play right here by Dark. Suddenly has re-grabbed himself, right? He's, yeah, once again on point here with all of his decision making. Okay, so even though the Ultras, I think I could have been out a little bit earlier, they're still gonna come out before any sort of Ghost transitions here. That's what we want to see. If Ghosts come out, the game gets tricky. We're, by the way, still marching down the ramp here without any sort of scanning ahead of it. A little dangerous, but we're gonna try and set up another base over here at the bottom of the map. +3/+3 is gonna finish up for the Zerg. About a minute or so from now, we'll see the same thing as well for Terran. Luckily, we've had that Viper buff on the consumption, am I right? Okay. Good movement here, though, by Oliveira, all things considered. Always putting his units in the right place at the right time. Yeah, and rarely does he find himself caught off guard against like a Baneling roll by or like a Zergling run by or something along those lines. You can tell that this man has been practicing a lot and that he has speed. Yeah, that's about 8 buttons a second on average. Does he have enough, though? That's the question. I feel like that Infestor has been following around his army for a while. The majority of the Terran army is currently on the left side of the map. He is inviting that Zerg off creep, but he's not going to take the invitation. Marine drop over here up north may very well be able to even the score as far as the base killing goes. So yeah, Planetary Fortress for a hatchery, not a terrible trade. Especially if you can get another hatchery over here, but this is now forcing the Terran here into a much more all-in-y position. 60 workers only, no longer maxed out. Dark, however, at nearly 200 supply with plenty of resources in the bank, and now he's gonna start ravaging those mineral lines. Okay. Feel like this is the first time we see Dark playing a proper macro game. And who would have thought? He's good at it. Who would have assumed that Dark was good at playing a proper macro match? I know, crazy. He's just been sort of avoiding it in almost every game. Parasitic Bomb once again coming up. Good split right there. Beautiful split there. Got a compliment on Oliveira right there on that decision. That's so easy to look at and then decide, yeah, I would have done that differently, but he somehow, some way picked out the perfect medevac there. Liberator's now set up. Widowmine's also in a good position. Is Dark gonna push through this? He has a lot of money in the bank. Fungal growth over there does go down. This Planetary Fortress is a very important one right here for Oliveira, and it will end up going down. And with that, he decides to tap out. Okay, and that takes us to Site Delta. Final game in his best of 5 series. A very good one so far, by the way. I really thought Oliveira had it, but sadly for him, he made a bit of a mistake. Not quite committing to the all-in. Not quite committing to the macro game. Yeah. When you play a middle-of-the-road style, especially as Terran, it just rarely works out. You gotta be so sharp with your decision-making. But, you know, in a game, especially when there's like a new patch and there's a new map, right? It's very scary sometimes to make that decision. But at least in my experience, middle-of-the-road decisions in both real life as well as the video game. Barely ever a good idea. Now, would you look at that? It's the final game, and Oliveira is going double factory. Are we finally gonna see some Cyclone Hellion play? Or is it just gonna be Blue Flame? It could definitely just be Blue Flame. We've got ourselves a second reactor coming up. What in the world is this second factory for? I don't know, we'll have to see. Dark has once again decided to go for the standard triple hatch opener. Not skipping the link speed here. He'll probably be firing it up soon. I mean, he's got the money for it. He should really be firing it up right about right now. But let's have a look at this factory. Are we gonna pump out? Okay, we're just gonna pump out 4 factory units at once? Hellions and Cyclones and all the rest of it? I do love this so much, though, about Oliveira's style, right? Like, the man laughs in the face of danger. This would be where a lot of people are like, okay, it's the final game in the best of 5. There's like $800 on the line over here or whatever. I gotta try and play my best game. I need to try and just play what I'm best at and my most comfortable. And then he brings out the crazy stuff. He laughs in the face of danger. This is where I would personally get very nervous, but apparently Oliveira, he does not. Mass Cyclone. How good is it? I honestly don't know. I'm inclined to imagine that at this level of play, it's not that great. If you do it against me on the ladder, I falter within minutes. I'm not good at playing against this stuff yet. But I think at this level of play, especially when Dark is actually... I thought that was just like a macro Roach Warren, but it's not. I was so focused on what the Terran was doing that Dark apparently has decided to go for a Roach Rush here. It's a Roach Rush against somebody who already has a lot of Cyclones out. If these Cyclones are seen right here by the Overlord, I think Dark should make the decision to turn around. If he can catch all of those Roaches out in the middle of the map, I think the Cyclones can count them and kite them for days. Okay, well at this point they're spotted. Yeah, immediately. I think this is the right move, man. I've tried attacking into Cyclones myself with Roaches, and it does not work. I think Oliveira should have waited. He didn't know, obviously, that these units are were gonna come across the map. There you go. Words are hard. If he would have known, I think he should have waited for just like 30 more seconds, because he would have killed pretty much his entire army for free. Hellbats and Cyclones. Is there enough? A couple of slow Zerglings joining in the fray as well. That lock-on ability is not gonna last forever, and you know what? Yeah. Dark was already making so many Roaches here for such a long time that I don't think this was quite ideal here for the Terran player. He's gonna double down though. I think the first wave of Cyclones is where you can really catch the opponent off guard. Now the surprise has been spoiled, but you kind of have to make more of the same stuff. So yeah, third factory coming up right now. We've got the Glio Reconstitution. That's the speed upgrade here for the Roaches. That's a really nice upgrade to just have a much easier time against that, well, mech-based army. I also think the Infestor, the change to the Infestor is actually quite beneficial in this particular scenario, where you can get yourself that fungal growth on this army. I think Dark accidentally lucked his way into this one, though, because he was accidentally playing the right strategy against this build. And, I mean, it could have still really gone south if he decided to go for a push up the ramp, but he saw it just seconds before he was committed with his entire army, so he could just barely scramble all of his units back home. If he did not open up blindly like he did, and if he did not send those Roaches back home as quickly as he did, he would have been in a world of trouble. Now he finds himself in a pretty playable spot, but still a pretty dangerous one too. This is unexplored territory. Now one thing we should certainly have here is the upgrade for the Cyclones. The Hurricane Thrusters, it allows them to move around much faster. When you have this many units, I don't think Blue Flame is the priority. Yeah, I think you really want to be going for the speed upgrade for the Cyclone instead, but I might be wrong. Tunneling Claws together with Burrow coming up here for Dark. Whereas this is unexplored territory for Oliveira, this is something Dark has been playing with for years. Okay. Armory coming up. Armory number 2, that is. 4th Command Center at this point is done. Nidus Worm. Dark, with that very committed decision making, right? Rarely will you see him doing a little bit of everything. He's already got an Overlord waiting in the back of the Terran's main base. There's a little bit of a dark spot here in the main base of the Terran where he does not have vision. If we see a Nidus Worm going up unscouted, this could be an absolute disaster. Obviously, at the same time, I think Dark is going to strike as well with tunneled Roaches. A couple of Blue Flame Hellions over here, though. Getting quite a bit of damage done. Nidus Worm on the back of this, together with an Infestation Pit, so it's not quite going to be an all-in. Nidus Network here not scouted. There's the Worm going up in the main base. The majority of the Zerg army right over here. I think the reinforcements are probably rallied on top of it. Couple of Hellions over here, though, still being a nuisance, but they should get cleaned up. Main army over here, a couple siege tanks, but not all of them are sieged up. A little bit slow on the siege up, but it does look like there's enough Terran here to push all of this back eventually. Maybe? I mean, again, I'm looking at this from, like, the previous patch's point of view. Those Cyclones not nearly as tanky. In the meantime, the Roaches have, well, left the Nidus Worm here. And what I thought was gonna look pretty good there for the Terran turns out to be an advantage for the Zerg. These fights, man, they look so different on the new patch than they did in the past. And it turns out it's our Zerg player who obtains the victory in game number 5. Hey, if you made it all the way until the end of this video, definitely make sure you hit that like button down below. It really does help. And if you enjoy watching my StarCraft content, maybe you'll enjoy watching the other games that I upload to YouTube as well on my second channel. That's youtube.com/morelowko. There's a link to that YouTube channel down below in the description of this video. It's basically a channel where I upload completed games that I have streamed on Twitch. Anyways, for now, have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to smile. And I'll see you once again tomorrow for another video.